Have you ever noticed how love, which should be a source of vitality, so often becomes the reason for suffering? We live in a time where relationships are constantly displayed, measured, and compared on screens. Scroll through social media, and you'll find endless declarations of devotion, romantic gestures, and promises of eternal loyalty. Yet behind these polished posts, countless women are consumed by exhaustion, betrayal, and silent despair. The contrast is striking. How can something celebrated as the highest expression of human connection so often end in resentment, dependency, and loss of self? Nietzsche saw this long before Instagram feeds and dating apps. He understood that love, when distorted, becomes not freedom but bondage. And modern reality proves him right. Surveys show rising levels of anxiety and depression directly tied to relationships. Many women report feeling drained, unfulfilled, and trapped in cycles of giving everything while receiving little in return. Popular culture even romanticizes this suffering. Songs glorify heartbreak. Movies portray sacrifice as the ultimate proof of devotion. And advice columns normalize jealousy and control as signs of true passion. But suffering is not proof of deeper love. It is a signal of love twisted against itself. Nietzsche argued that when love loses its grounding in strength and individuality, it transforms into dependency, resentment, and a theater of sacrifice. And today, we can see this pattern play out everywhere. A partner's approval becomes a measure of self-worth. Silence after a text message feels like abandonment. Relationships turn into negotiations of guilt rather than celebrations of freedom. This is the uncomfortable truth. Love, as it is often practiced, is less about joy and more about control. And the suffering that follows is not accidental. It is built into the very way we've been taught to love. Love begins with a rush that feels almost supernatural. A woman meets someone, and suddenly her world rearranges itself around that presence. She feels chosen, seen, elevated above the ordinary routines of her life. In the beginning, this devotion seems like strength. She gives her attention, her time, her body, her dreams. And the more she gives, the more she believes the bond is real. But in today's reality, this devotion often tilts the balance of power. Men, whether consciously or not, are at an advantage in this exchange. Dating culture, apps, and even everyday relationships reveal it. Women invest enormous emotional energy early on, while men, aware of their options, learn to keep distance. Studies show men swipe right on dating apps far less often, knowing scarcity works in their favor. Women, on the other hand, often overextend in pursuit of what feels rare. Commitment. The seduction of love is not just about desire. It's about an unspoken contract where one side is trained to give more than the other. Modern relationships show it everywhere. A woman rearranges her schedule, sacrifices her priorities, tolerates late replies or vague promises, all in the name of proving her loyalty. Meanwhile, men maintain their autonomy, keeping career, friendships, and personal goals intact. The imbalance grows quietly, disguised as romance. This is how love begins to twist. What felt like liberation soon becomes dependence. The initial intoxication blinds her to the fact that she is pouring herself out, while the other side remains largely untouched. It is not cruelty, but advantage. And the reality is visible in countless stories. Women exhausted by the effort of sustaining a love that men can step in and out of without losing themselves. This is the first seed of suffering. What begins as devotion soon hardens into dependence. At first, a woman gives freely because she wants to. She answers messages immediately. She clears her calendar. She adapts to his moods. But slowly, the rhythm changes. What was once voluntary becomes necessary. His approval is no longer just pleasant, it becomes vital. Without it, The ground beneath her feels unstable. Modern life amplifies this shift. Social media tracks every interaction, every like, every moment of silence. A missed reply can spiral into hours of anxiety. She scrolls back through conversations, searching for what she might have said wrong. A night without his attention feels like rejection, even if it's just indifference. Dependence today isn't hidden. It is measurable in screen time, in message counts, in the constant checking of online status. Men hold the advantage here, not only because many are less conditioned to base their worth on a relationship, but because culture trains them to withhold. In dating advice for men, detachment is often presented as strategy. Wait to reply. Don't appear too eager. Maintain mystery. Women, on the other hand, are told to prove loyalty, to make it work, to hold on even when affection turns cold. This dynamic ensures one side remains secure, while the other becomes increasingly restless. Dependence reshapes identity. Friends notice she talks less about her own life and more about his. Work deadlines slip because she's caught in emotional turbulence. The axis of her world is no longer herself, but him. And this shift is not rare. It's common. Studies on relationships reveal women report higher emotional labor, carrying the burden of maintaining closeness while men keep distance. What once felt like passion now feels like survival. And survival is a poor foundation for love. When dependence sets in, it often dresses itself as sacrifice. A woman tells herself she is simply giving because love demands it. She convinces herself that endurance is proof of loyalty. Canceling plans for him, overlooking disrespect, forgiving broken promises, each act is framed as devotion. Yet beneath the surface, this sacrifice is not strengthening love. It is hollowing her out. In today's reality, sacrifice is glorified in subtle ways. Movies and shows still present the woman who waits, who suffers, who bends without breaking, as the symbol of true love. Social media amplifies the narrative. Posts about standing by him no matter what gather likes and admiration, while walking away is condemned as selfishness. The message is clear. To suffer in love is to be virtuous. And many women internalize it so deeply, they no longer notice how much they've surrendered. Men, again, are at an advantage here. They can receive sacrifice without giving it back in equal measure. In relationships, research shows women perform most of the invisible labor: emotional support, planning, remembering details, soothing conflicts. Men often benefit from this unacknowledged work without being expected to match it. Sacrifice becomes a one-way transaction, praised when women give and rarely questioned when men withhold. But sacrifice carries a hidden cost. Over time, resentment builds beneath the surface. A woman who constantly gives without recognition begins to feel invisible. Her needs shrink, her voice softens, her desires go unspoken. She may call it love, but in reality, it is a slow erosion of self. What makes this so dangerous is that it doesn't feel like destruction at first. It feels noble, even sacred. Yet this disguise is the very reason love twists into suffering. Love rarely stays still. Once devotion and sacrifice take root, the desire to hold on at any cost begins to grow. What started as affection transforms into possession. A woman no longer simply wants to be loved. She wants to secure love, to guard it, to make it permanent. The fear of losing what she has poured herself into drives her to cling tighter, even when the grip suffocates both sides. In today's world, this possession is not hidden. It is tracked through phones, through constant check-ins, through monitoring social media activity. Arguments erupt over likes on a photo, delays in response, or glimpses of attention given to someone else. The digital landscape feeds this insecurity, offering endless opportunities to compare, to doubt, to demand. Possession feels like protection, but in reality, It breeds constant suspicion. Men benefit from this imbalance, while women are often expected to prove loyalty through transparency, sharing passwords, explaining whereabouts, offering reassurance. Men are not held to the same standard. A man can guard his independence and even use jealousy to assert control, while women are pressured to justify every action to maintain trust. The asymmetry leaves one side exposed and the other shielded. The poison of possession is that it disguises itself as passion. A woman may believe her jealousy is proof of how deeply she cares. She tells herself that guarding love is the only way to keep it alive. But possession transforms love from something free into something owned. It erodes respect, replacing intimacy with control. And the more she tries to hold on, the more fragile the bond becomes. In the end, possession does not secure love. It suffocates it, leaving behind the very emptiness she feared all along. Once possession takes hold, pain begins to be mistaken for proof of love. A woman tells herself that enduring disappointment, betrayal, or neglect is part of what it means to love fully. She believes the intensity of her suffering reflects the depth of her devotion. This mindset is not accidental. It is reinforced everywhere around her. Modern culture glorifies suffering in subtle but persistent ways. Music charts are filled with heartbreak anthems where pain is romanticized as the ultimate measure of passion. Films and shows present heroines who endure endless trials for the sake of true love, teaching audiences that the more a woman suffers, the more noble her love must be. Even social media plays into this narrative, with posts about loyalty through hardship being celebrated while walking away is often framed as betrayal. The message is repeated until it feels natural. Suffering is the highest form of commitment. Men gain from this arrangement, consciously or not. If suffering is normalized as love, then they are not expected to change behaviors that cause it. Late replies, emotional neglect, even infidelity can be excused under the idea that relationships are hard and real love requires patience. Women are the ones encouraged to endure, to forgive, to stay, while men maintain the privilege of being flawed without losing the relationship. The tragedy of this cult is that pain becomes addictive. The cycle of hurt and reconciliation produces emotional highs and lows that mimic intensity. Many women confuse this volatility with passion, unable to see that it is eroding them from within. The belief that love must hurt transforms joy into endurance, and endurance into identity. What should have been a source of strength becomes a slow-burning altar where the self is sacrificed. When suffering becomes normalized, the next stage often unfolds as performance. Pain is no longer just endured in silence. It is displayed, narrated, and used as a form of currency in relationships. A woman who feels unseen may turn to dramatization as a way to reclaim attention. She posts cryptic quotes, shares tearful stories, or crafts narratives that paint her as the one who gave everything and received nothing. In this theater, the audience is not only her partner, but friends, family, and even strangers online. Modern platforms magnify this tendency. Instagram stories, TikTok rants, and long social media captions allow private conflict to become public spectacle. Each post invites sympathy, validation, and reassurance that her suffering has meaning. The performance may feel empowering in the moment, but it deepens the cycle. Instead of breaking free, she reinforces the idea that her pain defines her. The identity of the victim becomes a mask she cannot easily take off. Men often benefit from this stage as well. By positioning herself as the long-suffering partner, she absolves him of responsibility in subtle ways. If she is always the one hurt, always the one forgiving, then the focus remains on her endurance rather than his behavior. The narrative shifts from accountability to pity, and pity has a strange way of disguising power. The cost of this theater is heavy. It traps her in a role where strength is never allowed to emerge, where healing is delayed in favor of recognition. Over time, she begins to mistake visibility for transformation, when in truth, nothing changes. The drama consumes energy that could have gone into rebuilding herself. What began as a cry for love becomes a stage where suffering is endlessly rehearsed but never resolved. Patterns in love rarely disappear. They repeat. What looks like a new relationship often becomes a familiar cycle, only with different faces. A woman tells herself, "This time will be different," yet the story unfolds with the same rhythm. Excitement, devotion, sacrifice, possession, pain. The details change, but the structure does not. Disappointment returns, like an echo, each time louder than the last. In modern dating culture, this cycle is easy to trace. Apps offer the illusion of infinite choice, yet many women find themselves entangled in similar situations. Ghosting, emotional unavailability, partners who offer intensity at the beginning and withdrawal once security is established. Studies confirm the pattern. Breakups caused by mismatched expectations repeat across multiple relationships, suggesting the cycle is less about chance and more about learned behavior. What feels like bad luck is often repetition. Men hold an advantage in this endless return. With more freedom to detach, they can exit and re-enter relationships with less social cost. Society rarely judges a man harshly for moving on quickly, but women who do the same risk being labeled careless or unstable. This double standard keeps women more invested in the cycle, while men can remain detached observers of it. The pain of repeated disappointment is not just emotional, it is existential. Each failed attempt leaves her questioning not only the partner, but herself. Am I unworthy? Am I too much? Am I not enough? These doubts accumulate until the cycle becomes self-fulfilling. She accepts less. She tolerates more. She repeats what once destroyed her. The tragedy is not in the single heartbreak, but in the endless return of the same disappointment, lived over and over, as if trapped in a script she never wrote but keeps performing. When disappointment repeats often enough, many women try to regain balance by negotiating control. Instead of leaving the cycle, they attempt to manage it, believing that if they can shape the man's behavior, they can secure love without losing themselves. This bargain often looks like rules, conditions, or silent tests. She checks his loyalty through small traps, measures his commitment through staged distance, or insists on promises that rarely hold. Modern relationships are filled with this bargaining. Couples fight not about love itself, but about rules of conduct. Who texts first? How quickly one replies? How often they spend time together? What counts as cheating in the digital age? Control disguises itself as structure, but its foundation is fear. The bargain is never truly about him. It is about silencing her own insecurity. By attempting to control the other, she hopes to control the chaos inside. Men, however, often stand at an advantage in this game. They know the rules can be bent without collapsing the relationship. If he breaks one, she may rage or threaten to leave, but the cycle of reconciliation brings her back. He learns that her control is not absolute, that the bargain is more about her need to hold him than his obligation to change. This knowledge gives him quiet power. He can resist without losing. The bargain of control corrodes intimacy because it turns love into management. Instead of surrendering freely to connection, both become locked in a tug of war where one fights to hold on and the other resists being held. The result is a relationship defined not by trust, but by strategy. And in a world where trust is already fragile, strategy only sharpens the distance it was meant to close. At the heart of many relationships lies an unspoken economy, where love is measured not by joy, but by sacrifice. A woman believes that the more she gives up, her time, her ambitions, even her friendships, the stronger her claim on love becomes. She treats sacrifice as currency, hoping that enough of it will secure permanence. Yet, instead of gaining stability, she finds herself drained, while the other side remains untouched. This reality is visible in modern life everywhere. Career plans are adjusted to follow a partner's opportunities. Social circles are narrowed to avoid conflict. Personal boundaries are blurred in the name of compromise. Surveys show that women are still far more likely to reduce work hours or step back from personal goals after entering long-term relationships, while men rarely make equivalent adjustments. The imbalance is not hidden. It is embedded in the way relationships are structured. Men hold advantage in this exchange because they are rarely asked to match sacrifice with sacrifice. Society praises the woman who gives everything for her relationship, but places no equal demand on men. In fact, male sacrifice is often seen as optional, almost noble when it appears, while female sacrifice is expected and assumed. This double standard ensures that the ledger of love remains uneven. The tragedy is that sacrifice, once believed to guarantee loyalty, instead feeds resentment. What was freely given begins to feel like a debt unpaid. She looks at the pieces of herself left behind and wonders why they were not enough to buy the security she longed for. The truth is stark. Sacrifice is not currency, because love is not a transaction. Yet as long as she continues to pay with pieces of herself, he will continue to receive without cost. One of the strongest traps in love is the belief that she is unique in his eyes, that her role is irreplaceable. This conviction keeps many women bound to relationships that no longer serve them. She convinces herself that no one else could understand him the way she does, that her sacrifice, her loyalty, her endurance set her apart from all others. But in reality, men often hold the advantage by knowing the opposite, that replacement is always possible. Modern dating culture reinforces this imbalance. Apps create an endless marketplace of potential partners where the next connection is just a swipe away. For men, this abundance breeds detachment. Studies show men are more likely to re-enter dating quickly after a breakup, while women take longer to recover, often analyzing where they went wrong. The illusion of being irreplaceable blinds her to the truth that he has options, and she has convinced herself that she is his only one. The imbalance grows sharper in today's public relationships. Online, many men openly follow, like, and interact with other women, reminding their partner, whether intentionally or not, that she is not the only one who captures attention. Instead of breaking away, she doubles down, investing more, hoping to prove her singular worth. Her efforts become a competition against an endless backdrop of others. This illusion benefits men because it keeps women locked in place, afraid to leave what they believe cannot be replicated. Yet the irony is brutal. While she sees herself as irreplaceable, he often sees her as interchangeable. The more she clings to the belief that she is special, the more power she gives away. In a world where options are endless, the only true rarity is the one who refuses to live as though she can be replaced. After all the cycles of devotion, possession, sacrifice, and disappointment, what keeps many women bound is not the man himself, but the fear of being free. Freedom sounds desirable in theory, yet in practice, it means facing the silence of one's own life, without the distractions of drama or the comfort of routine suffering. The absence of him feels heavier than his presence, even when that presence brings pain. In today's reality, this fear is visible everywhere. Women stay in relationships long past their expiration, not because love remains, but because leaving demands starting over. A new life requires rediscovering independence, building self-worth outside of partnership and confronting the possibility of loneliness. Modern culture intensifies this fear. Scrolling through curated images of happy couples online makes solitude feel like failure. Society often labels single men as independent, while single women are seen as incomplete, a stigma that pushes many to cling to broken bonds. Men, again, benefit from this divide. Freedom is rarely framed as a threat to them. A man leaving a relationship is praised for choosing himself, while a woman doing the same risks judgment for being selfish or unable to keep a man. This double standard turns freedom into something men can embrace and women often avoid. The fear of freedom chains more tightly than love ever could. It convinces her that suffering with someone is safer than facing life alone. Yet the irony is clear. The freedom she avoids is the very thing that could restore her strength. By remaining bound, she hands men the advantage not through love, but through fear. And as long as freedom is seen as a threat rather than a beginning, suffering will always disguise itself as devotion.